Today, we become legends.
So Fineokay recently dropped a video on kind of like what's been happening in the SPL with Worlds and all that kind of stuff, and also a fair bit about like the current meta of Smite and how he feels about it. And I've given it a watch through, and it's actually a really interesting watch. I'll link the full video down below if you want to watch it all the way through uninterrupted without my commentary, because I won't be playing the full video here. So if you want to check out everything he has to say, definitely check that link below. But yeah, I basically just want to give my thoughts on this because I have a fair few thoughts on the current meta and like what happened at Worlds and all that kind of stuff as well. And I'll just kind of present my thoughts on the situation in like a response video kind of format. So we'll jump right in here.
Where it was like, so I started playing SPL in season 5.
Good time to start playing SPL. Season 5 was like the big overhaul of the Conquest map when Smite kind of had its little revival, kind of renaissance. Like season 3 and 4 were kind of going really downhill, and then season 5 kind of revamped the game in a lot of ways. Brought back a lot of things we loved about old Smite, an entirely new Conquest map, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, got a good time to start playing.
Technically in season 3, but it wasn't like, I didn't really actually start playing. And then season 4 was when I like, okay, yeah, I think it was season 4, but basically season 5, right? And in season...
So you basically had to suffer through season 3 and 4 and then got to play in season 5.
And that was like before COVID and everything, and that was the first year we had like LANs and stuff. And it was amazing, you know, I enjoyed it a lot. But it was also the first year that they removed the region versus region like aspect to the game. And
yeah, this is a huge thing. He talks about it in the video, so I'll play his thoughts on it. But like region to region was really important for the game in a way I think a lot of people didn't realize, to be honest.
I don't know if you guys watch, probably a lot of you guys do, but I don't know if you guys watch other like esports and stuff like that. Like the best example I can think of is probably the most recent thing was Valorant. Is like how important region versus region is in these other esports. I don't know if you guys saw like Latin American versus like the Sentinels, or saw just like EU versus NA and the shit talk that came with that, and like how hype it made the matches.
Yeah, it's honestly true. A lot of people like complain about shit talk, and you know, as long as it's just friendly shit talk between teams, there's no problem with that. It brings a lot of excitement and rivalry to, you know, kind of top level games where like the excitement and rivalry should be there because they're fighting for, you know, the ultimate title of best team in the world, and I assume a lot of money as well. So like it completely makes sense to have that kind of rivalry, and as Fino says in the video, like having that region versus region rivalry, you know, it gives players like, I guess, like a side to fight on, you know, to like fight for their region kind of thing, which is like, it does add a lot more kind of spark to the games and things like that, and makes it more interesting. Like in previous Worlds, for example, like before they made it all on LAN and moved all the players to America, you had like EU style of Smite clashing with NA style of Smite in like maybe the finals of Worlds or something like that, and you had these two completely different styles. Like EU was usually more defensive and like played for the late game, and NA was more aggressive, played for like tempo, early game, that kind of stuff. It wasn't always the case. There were definitely more defensive American teams, but that was generally like the style, and those two styles sometimes clashed at Worlds where you had like the best EU team versus the best NA team, and sort of like a clash of the titans on which play style would kind of come out on top, and that made it a lot more interesting. Whereas now that all the pro players are like essentially located in the same area, you don't really have that same kind of like region versus region differential.
That's going to be a lot of money that Hi-Rez has to pay to each region individually for each like person on the team. So that's kind of unsustainable, but like there's got to be some way that
I wouldn't say it's unsustainable. Like we've made it work before with like many teams like that. Maybe not 8 in each region, but like we've done multi-region before. Like it worked. It wasn't as high production quality as it is now with them all being, you know, in the studio and things like that, but it did work. I'm sure there'd be a way to work around it. Also, another thing about the pro players moving to NA, it really killed the like top level EU ranked scene. Like I'm not going to say I'm always playing at a top level in EU ranks, because I'm absolutely not, but I have been there a few times, you know, 2 or 3 times I've been there in very high masters, and you get a feel for like what the high masters meta really is, and it's a lot of fun. But a lot of that got taken away with the move, because you never see pro players anymore on the ranked EU ladder. You just either see ex-pros or like really good ranked players. You never see, you know, I'm never going to queue into Fineokay or like any other pro player because they're all on NA servers. So it kind of destroyed the EU rank scene in terms of like competitive integrity, I guess. And obviously you can still get high in the rank scene and get scouted by teams and maybe move to America, join a team and things like that. But there's a lot more barriers in place now for players like that to actually get involved.
For that, if we had kept that region versus region, who knows where Smite could be today if we, you know, had that hype for the tournaments and stuff. And we talked about this. We talked about this with people in the past that worked at Hi-Rez, and it was kind of like they didn't see the value in it. And it's hard to, you can't like quantify how important it is, because
yeah,
you know,
true. That's the problem with changes like this, that it's not a quantifiable number where you'll say that it'll pull in this many viewers, because you just can't. It's just a kind of feel thing. Like, you feel like it makes it more interesting to watch. And I do agree with Fine on this.
And then also this year, what was I about to say? Oh, franchising. What are your guys' opinions on franchising?
Right, so franchising is where they've turned all the teams into, like, you know, the Taurus Titans and Jade Dragons and all that kind of stuff instead of just being named after orgs. To me, I don't hate it, but I also don't see the point in it. Like, I feel like it's an investment of money and time, you know, managing the social media for the team accounts and stuff like that, coming up with all the names, getting all the branding and all that stuff. And it doesn't make an impact, to be completely honest. Like, I'm completely indifferent on it. It could be there and it could not be there, and it would make no difference to my viewing experience. Like, I don't think it's a bad thing, but I think it's, you know, the opportunity cost of spending money and time doing this when they could have been doing it on other things, I think is what makes it a bad thing. You know, the idea itself isn't terrible, but I think there are better ideas that they could be spending their funding and time on, essentially.
This year. Because I personally think the franchising has been kind of a failure. I think the only other two esports I know that
I wouldn't call it a complete failure, as I said. Like, I think it's more so they could have done other things with that money. But I guess it's a failure in the sense that it really didn't drive any more attention and didn't really make an impact. You know, as I said, it could be there and it could not be there, and I wouldn't care. So I guess it's a failure in that way.
You know that have done this are Overwatch and COD. Overwatch, dead. And COD is, like, very quickly dying. If you guys are keeping up with the COD scene at all,
yeah, COD's not doing great.
It's in a really bad spot.
I haven't heard anything about Vanguard
obviously the game itself
launched.
can't die because COD is like one of the biggest games ever. But like, but the problem is these are two much bigger games backed by much bigger companies with a lot more money, and they're still messing up the franchising. So I just don't exactly see the point of it. And when it comes to Smite.
Yeah, that's my entire thought process. I don't see the point of it, basically.
To be like branded for
I don't
us,
hate it. I don't love it. I just don't see the point of it.
I'm sure people are putting a lot of effort into it, and I really appreciate it. But some of the social media posts and stuff like that just don't represent us at all. I don't know. I'm not saying it shouldn't be our job to be like social media people, but I feel like it should try and represent us a little bit more.
If it was more about the personality of the players and you could kind of really draw an attachment to the team like you sometimes do in traditional sports with sports teams, I think that would make a lot more sense. But right now they feel like kind of a shell, and like they're just a way to kind of organize teams into 5 and like post about them kind of thing. I don't know. It's a weird thing. Like, it's not quantifiable again, but it does feel a bit strange and kind of unnecessary.
So yeah, that's not that big of a deal. But the last thing I wanted to talk about was just like game balance over the past
yeah, so this is the bit I can provide a bit more of my take on. Like, when he talks about game balance, when he's talking about SPL, I can kind of say my thoughts, but take them with a grain of salt, because obviously I'm not an SPL player and I don't like religiously study the SPL and its inner workings. So Fine definitely knows a lot more about this than I do, but in terms of game balance, I can definitely give my thoughts on it.
Pretty awesome, actually. And like what Ajax and the crew has done with certain gods and like mixing up the game and the items and stuff like that has been pretty good.
Not lately. Mixing up the game has not been good lately. The meta's been incredibly stale for so long. I think in general they're definitely doing a better job of balancing than before, as in like the extremes are less extreme. You know, you don't get gods that are literally breaking the entire game like we had in, you know, beta and season 1 and season 2 and that kind of stuff. You know, release Bologna, release Guan, those kind of gods. You don't see those anymore, but you also like, it does feel like the meta's a bit stale sometimes and never really moving, and you're just playing against the same thing with the same build over and over again. You know, looking at you, Milan and Achilles with Blackthorn Hammer and Warrior's Axe, you know, it just feels way too samey, and it gets boring when all you're doing is playing against the same character, because those characters and those items can't lose effectively. You know, if you play anything but Warrior's Axe, Blackthorn Warrior, or maybe Camazots in solo right now, you just lose. So like, it just does feel a bit stale. I don't know, we've got a new season coming around the corner, and that's why, but it still doesn't feel great.
The problem I've had is, like, for example, this past Worlds, Erlang and Hell are still being played. Like, we literally had to deal with that all year, and it's the most unfun thing to play against. And
I hate playing against Erlang, and I hate how strong he is. I do like playing him. I just hate Hell in general, but yeah, Erlang's been way too strong for way too long. I've been saying this for ages. You know, Erlang just is a busted character. Does way too much damage, way too much CC for the amount of damage he does. You know, you just build him full damage in the jungle, and he just does way too much work. Like, I would say Erlang has been, you know, either top tier or on the verge of top tier for about 4 years. Like, I'm not even joking. He's just been insanely strong. And in terms of Hell, like, yeah, Hell's just unfun. healer, like out of combat focused healers like Hell are just like really not super fun.
And we're still having to play against it in like the World's Finals.
And yeah,
And
this is
just
what I was
healers
talking
in
about
general,
with like a stale
honestly.
meta, you know, just
Like,
always playing as the same
And
thing.
Yamoja, yeah. Yamoja's one of my favorite characters. but that
Yamoja,
character
don't
is
even
just
get me
ridiculous.
started on Yamoja, dude. Like, I'll be here for 7 minutes ranting about Yamoja just on my own.
Ridiculous. And it's just healers in general. And something I thought about was like the global anti-heal debuff is actually like it has been pretty good for healers, but it also has buffed them in a way, because one of the best ways to deal with healers in Smite is to have self-sustain and to just heal yourself. So whether
True.
that's like lifesteal or playing characters, like the best example I can think of is like Amma, right? Like Amma has been gutted by the fact that you get less healing out of combat. Like, so if she wants to send it to her tower when she's getting bullied in lane in certain matchups, ooh, voice crack, when she's getting bullied in lane in certain matchups, like, and she wants to send it to her tower and spam her one, like, she gets less healing from that just as a product of healers being OP. Has nothing.
Didn't really think about that. Like, it really does affect out of combat self-sustain also, you know. I wonder if they could do it in a way where, like, you know, it only applies if you're AoE healing or something like that. Sorry about that. Some kind of giant lorry or truck just went past my window. It could be, you know, like that, where if it hits multiple targets. But that just feels a little bit like ham-fisted. You know, you're kind of going at it and, like, specifically targeting this one thing instead of fixing the wider problem. Like, it's a bit of a band-aid solution, I guess. But yeah, it does majorly impact these gods that just enjoy, like, a bit of self-sustain, you know, maybe to keep them topped up under their tower and things while they're not in combat. Like, it affects that when maybe it shouldn't, you know. I don't think Amma's one needs any nerfs, but like AoE out of combat healing obviously does. And so you gotta find a way to kind of like balance very carefully around that, where you can nerf the healers that are being problems while not destroying like little bits of self-sustain and kits.
Nothing to do with the fact that her self-sustain is broken. It's the fact that like you can walk out of combat with Hell and group heal everybody for more than like people are doing. And you'll like watch these games and you'll see that Hell has like 28k healing, which is like 2 or 3 people's total damage combined by the end of the game.
Yeah, it's stupid.
Realistically,
it really is.
like 2 people's damage at the end of the game. And in Smite,
like,
dude,
you can just add that healing onto the damage she does, and when like Hell is competitive in terms of damage with other mages, you know, maybe slightly less, but not that much. And then she's also doing 2 people's damage worth in healing. You know, she's effectively 3 gods at that point. And it's just really not fun. Like, the fact that you can just disengage and then, you know, 5 seconds later, the enemy team's back at full health. You know, you have to just Unga Bunga run at the Hell and kill her immediately or the game's over. And that's not really a very fun playstyle, I don't think.
I just think that is so fucking horrible. Like, Smite is a game based on skill shots and hitting your abilities and feeling good for, like, being skillful with your aim and, like, you know, mechanics and all that. And then it's immediately negated by somebody just clicking a button on their team whenever they, like, walk away.
It does feel
and
bad.
I just feel like that has really no place in Smite. And, like, I'm doubling down. Right now, I'm doubling down. I do not care if you think healing is fun in Smite. I actually genuinely think that they should remove group healing from the game. You should not be able to group heal.
See, this is a hot
take.
take.
You could take it out of the game, and it would not be hard to balance. It would be good for the game, and I just feel like it would be good.
So, I don't really agree with this. I don't think group healing should just be gone from the game, because again, I feel like that's a bit of a bull in a china shop approach. You know, they're like, I'm sure there's a way to fix it and have it be in the game in a reasonable state without just removing it. Because high-res do that a lot, you know, they have something's broken in the game, and instead of trying to fix it, they just remove it. And it dumbs down the game a lot when they just remove these things. You know, like Yamoja, for example, she's been broken for way too long, but I don't want them to just remove her from the game. I want them to actually bring her into some kind of balanced state where she's reasonable. I'm sure they can do that with all the minds they have working on it. Like, they have expert game designers working on it. I'm sure they can manage that. But I do 100% agree that it's a problem and needs fixing, you know, whether it's, you know, just literally cutting AoE healing in half, you know, make it like AoE magical lifesteal or just AoE lifesteal in general, actually, because you can do solely your own ability lifesteal and things like that now on physicals, but basically if you're AoE lifestealing, you only get 1/3 of the value, so you need to hit 3 targets to effectively get full lifesteal value, and if you're not hitting 3 targets, you're lifestealing less, and they could do that with heals maybe, you know. Just blanket any heal that hits more than one person is immediately like reduced in strength, and maybe reducing strength more the more people it hits. So like if you're hitting your entire team, they're only getting like 1/5 of the strength of the original heal, but distributed across the entire team or something like that. Like, I just don't think removing it entirely is a great way to go, but I guess they could remove it and replace it with something like, you know, buffs and debuffs, things like that. You know, Hell 3 could just instead give a lot of like team-wide buffs, because that makes a little bit more sense than just like permanent healing. You know, I'd even be down for them to add more shields into the game. You know, now we've got a lot of items like Sunder and Curse Tank that can counter shields. I'd be more okay with them replacing a lot of the heals with shields, to be honest, because then it's temporary health. It's not like they can just disengage, press hell 2-3 times and be back at full health. You know, they're just going to have a little bit of shield to engage again, but they're still not going to be, like, fully healed up. And maybe make healing, like, a little bit less rare then. And maybe, you know, you can shield your team up with health 3, and then they use their self-sustain to kind of heal up while they have the shield on them. But the way it is right now is definitely a problem. I 100% agree with Fine on that.
Like, take away Chonga's 3, take away Hell's 3, take away Hell's 1, take away Afro 3. Just add different things to these abilities. Make them do different things.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of what I was saying.
Take it out of the game.
But I think I do prefer my approach of, like, you know, diminishing returns if you're AoE healing. I think that makes a bit more sense than just removing it entirely. But I can absolutely see where the frustration comes from. You know, I'm no fan of AoE healers in Smite whatsoever. I'm just trying to suggest a solution instead of just remove it, because I feel like that's a bit ham-fisted.
I think it would just be better for the game. I mean, obviously there's these, like, people that are, like, in love with Afro. Honestly, probably in and out of game. But
True.
Like, and, you know, characters like Hell and stuff
the amount
like that.
of Afro mains that defend her religiously.
You know, that would just have to be a necessary sacrifice, you know? It would suck, but it's kind of like how I am with Persephone. Like, I had loved Persephone before, and then they took it out of the game, and now it's like, well, okay, that's unfortunate, but we move on.
A lot of people pissed off about the Persephone rework, huh?
I mean, it's just getting to the point where it's like, well, let's just... Maybe healers will be balanced if we add 70% anti-heal out of combat. Maybe that will do it. 'Cause, I mean,
this is a good point. Like, this is how Hi-Rez approaches things. They're just like, oh, healing's a problem. Let's just put global out of combat anti-heal and just keep scaling it up and up and up and up and up until we find a place where healers aren't strong anymore. That just doesn't seem like the best approach to me. You know, all you're doing is just reducing a percentage, or like increasing a percentage, I guess. And it impacts a lot of other parts of the game. You know, like Amaterasu's anti-heal, Amaterasu's self-heal, like, out of combat and stuff like that. And it can massively, like, ripple effect into other aspects of the game and cause actual problems, as opposed to, like, more targeted changes that actually address the real issue instead of just, like, a blanket fix, which is kind of what they're doing. And I don't really like that, to be honest.
Comes from, like, there's a lot of things. I'll never get over Persephone rework. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, Nika. I mean, there's, like, much more deep-rooted problems with, like, all this, because like healing, it comes back to, like, tanks and tank damage and how you can build tanky and still do a lot of damage, and then it's like really hard to balance around that because 80 carries come late game will one-shot tanks, but like
even mages one-shot tanks late game nowadays.
Do anything to tanks, even though like they do a billion damage. And
but yeah, like in the mid game is where tanks really shine nowadays. You know, tanks late game just get shredded by a hunter and maybe even by a mage if they're building a lot of the OP mage percent pen items. But in, like, the mid-game, so, like, early to mid-game when you're starting your rotations from solo, you're just so strong. Like, you're way above everyone else, especially with, like, Warriors Axe Blackthorn meta nowadays and, like, Achilles and Mulan, these really aggressive, high-damage warriors. It makes it feel like warriors are both OP and also garbage at the same time because, like, in the mid-game, you feel like you're on top of the world and, like, the enemy mid and ADC are just crying their eyes out because you're one-shotting them. Rightly so. Like... They are significantly imbalanced at that stage of the game, but then it completely flips. And when you go into late game, tanks can't survive. Like, you can't dive as a tank anymore. You have to play it more like a jungler rather than as a solo laner. Like, you dive like a jungler because you're just going to get absolutely destroyed if you stand still for more than 1 second because the ADC will shred you with all the OP percent pen. And there's no point in building defense anymore. You know, they back kin size if you've got a lot of health, and it's just, how do you survive in the late game? But then you can't just buff warriors like tankiness or whatever, because then that makes them become even more of a problem in the mid game when they're rotating and destroying everyone else. So it is a difficult problem to fix, and I'm not saying I have the solution. I'm just kind of bringing it attention to it, I guess, and as is Fino.
You know, it's just like there's a lot of stuff when it comes around that, but for the most part, I would say the game is pretty balanced. I just think that there's been some slow change.
I would argue the game's the most balanced it's ever been in terms of extremities. You know, you don't have any gods that are completely unplayable, I wouldn't say, and you also don't have any gods that are completely unbeatable either. You know, Mulan and Achilles and Solo are pretty close, but they're not there. You know, you can absolutely win the matchup with something else. It's just a little bit frustrating, but compared to how we've been in the past, it's definitely like one of the most balanced states it's ever been in.
Changes to certain very frustrating parts of the game, and I think that was like kind of one of them. And like you kind of saw it at Worlds, like healers still being played and still kind of ruining the meta. And I just think that those are...
Healers also apply a lot more to like a Worlds or like an SPL environment where all the players are really good in communicating, because you can very easily just like realize it's a bad fight, disengage with full communication, all 5 of you are like on the same page, you back up and you hell heal and you go back in, whereas like in random casuals and ranked where you have no communication with your team and you don't trust them whatsoever, it's a lot harder to do that kind of stuff. So big AoE healers like this have more impact on like the SPL meta than they do on just like random casuals and ranked.
Some unfortunate things that have happened the past couple years, especially, I mean, the game balance wise this year, but another thing when it comes to game balance is like Warriors Axe. I mean, Bluestone, the Bluestone meta at the beginning of this year was so good.
Stupid
and then
item.
We were basically forced into building Axe every single game for the past 3 months.
Yeah, I'm Blackthorn.
And we kind of built Axe last year with Warriors Blessing. So we're kind of just building the same thing we built for the past 2 years when we already...
This is what I was talking about with the stale meta. Like, it almost feels like Hi-Rez just forced you into building what they want you to build rather than like trying to keep things balanced and letting you discover what's powerful yourself. They're like, oh, you must build Warrior's Axe because we're going to make it 3 times as good as the rest of the like solo and starter items. And it's like, oh, okay, I guess I have to use Warrior's Axe now. And then, oh, we're going to give Blackthorn Hammer 400 health and 40 power for 2200 gold. And it's like, oh, I kind of have to build that now because if I don't, I'm going to get destroyed by someone else who is building it. And it just makes it like super not fun and very stale when everyone's just building the exact same thing. You know, even for years, as Fine pointed out here, where like Warrior's Blessing got reworked into Warrior's Axe, and then all you build is Warrior's Axe anyway. You know, you don't build all these cool new other starter items because you're forced into Warrior's Axe. And it's a bit sad.
We had a perfect example of how the meta could be with Bluestone at the beginning of the year. And that didn't get changed.
I love using Bluestone.
After,
like, even if it's bad, I don't care because it just makes the laning phase so much more fun on certain characters. You know, like Bluestone tier, ooh, so much fun.
Was a problem after Axe became so like good. They changed it to give it power, and now it's even better than it was before.
Yeah, I don't know why
more mandatory. Before you could actually maybe get away with going something else, but now you literally can't. And they even buff Sigil so much that you would want to build it, but you just can't. It's impossible.
Yeah, Sigil's really good. Like, if Warrior's Axe... Like, I think Warrior's Axe is taking a nerf in Season 9, actually, so maybe we'll see more Sigil. But Sigil's legit really good. Like, Sigil's one of the better starter items in the game, but you'd rarely see it built because Warrior's Axe is literally that strong. That, like, you almost have to go Warrior's Axe or you lose, basically.
Lose the lane. Too hard. So, that was a little bit unfortunate as well. And I just think that some of these changes just need to be quicker so that you can actually like twist the meta up in the SPL or in the Pro League so that like it's not just the same thing every day.
Yeah, they need to make more targeted and quicker changes, I think. You know, Warrior's Axe just being the thing you build all the time in solo on every single god for like 6 months or even longer, it's just not very fun. It's really not. Like, I enjoy it when the meta's shifting a little bit and there's a little bit of chaos, because out of the chaos, you know, good players can rise where they figure out what's good when everyone's like scrambling and stuff like that. You know, at the start of a new season and things like that, you know, you can really kind of pick something out that not a lot of people have realized yet and become a really good player because of that. Whereas, like, when there's no changes going on ever, it's just like, oh, I'm going to look up the meta build from 3 months ago. Oh, that's still the meta build right now. I guess I'll build that. And it's just a little bit boring. Right, but that's pretty much the video. You know, that's most of the points, like, final touches on here, and I've given my response to them. Again, if you want to watch the full video uninterrupted, where I'm not pausing and being annoying and giving my thoughts and things like that, you can go check out his original video down below. I highly recommend doing it. It's a great watch. But yeah, I just thought he touched on a lot of things here that I have my own opinions on. That, like, sometimes I'll agree with him, sometimes I won't. You know, like on removing healing, I don't really agree with him there, but I do agree on like the core sentiment in terms of like healing is too strong out of combat, like group healing, I mean. And definitely something needs to be done about it. But I just thought I'd kind of propagate this video because it's a very interesting one and give my thoughts on it as well. Maybe we can get the ears of some people at Hi-Rez to make some changes maybe. But yeah, leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it, and I'll catch you guys in another one later on. Have a great day, and peace out, you nerds.